Welcome back to Win the Day. My name's Jacob Wirka, and today I'll be looking at the book of 1 Peter, asking the difficult question, is there any purpose to suffering? Can you think of a time when you were facing trials or challenges and you just wanted to give up? Maybe a time where you didn't feel like you could keep going any further. What did you do? How did you keep going? For myself, I can remember times as a student, both undergrad and now working on my master's, where I was just overwhelmed. I was burned out, and I just didn't want to do any more assignments. I couldn't make myself write another paper. But in those difficult and stressful times, I needed to take a step back, and I needed to remember that my identity was not found in my grade or in my degree, but in Christ. I needed to remind myself of why I was pursuing all this education in the first place. I needed to remind myself of my purpose, and my purpose is what kept me going. So these ideas of perseverance and perspective are what the book of 1 Peter is all about. I think that Christians should want to read 1 Peter as an encouragement to our very souls. Peter is reminding fellow believers of how we're called to live differently because we know Jesus. And knowing Jesus changes how we face different trials and suffering here in this life. Now, this book of 1 Peter was written by the Apostle Peter. He was a disciple who was a part of Jesus' inner circle. And he had been told that he is the very rock upon which Jesus would build his church. Now, Peter is writing to encourage a scattered group of churches across Asia Minor. Now, these people are experiencing a lot of different persecution and trials, and it's because of their faith. This book was most likely written somewhere between 64 and 65 AD. Some notable people that are mentioned in the book of 1 Peter would be obviously Peter himself, as well as all these different churches that he's writing to across Asia Minor. So where can we find Jesus in this book of 1 Peter? Well, I think that we see Jesus when Peter reminds these persecuted Christians that suffering is actually an honor. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but I think that as Christians, when we suffer, we get to experience a part of Jesus that we can't find any other way. Suffering for a Christian serves a purpose of drawing us in closer to Jesus and actually making us more like him. Now, a key passage that I love from the book of 1 Peter is found in chapter 2 and verse 9. We read, "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light." I love this encouragement from Peter. He's reminding these people that their true identity and their true purpose is in Jesus. He's pulling from all sorts of parallels from the Old Testament and reminding them that through their faith in Jesus, Christians are now a new and a chosen people. They're called to be holy. They're called to be set apart from the world. He's reminding them that we are God's chosen people, and the purpose of our lives is to proclaim his excellencies as we remember the truth of the gospel. We must remember that we've been called away from the darkness of sin, and we've been brought into the light of Jesus and into his forgiveness. So everything that we do in our lives, even through suffering, can be used to glorify Jesus. So here's a big takeaway from the book of 1 Peter. As Christians, we must be willing to endure through hard times and through suffering. In those moments, we need to remember that we must fix our eyes not on our current circumstances, but on Jesus. We need to have an eternal perspective in all that we do. And we need to remember that earth is not our home. We have to remember that the suffering of this world, it won't last forever. And we have to remember that we can glorify Jesus through everything, especially when we suffer. So it's just like when I didn't think I could keep going as a student. I had to remind myself that it wouldn't last forever. Now, in the same way, this world and all of its struggles, they won't last forever. We need to remember our purpose and keep our eyes on eternity. Remember that our whole existence is to proclaim the excellencies of the one who has saved us. So here's my big challenge for you today. I know that we're all going through different trials and we're all going through suffering, but I want you to think about how you could use your suffering to glorify Jesus and to even draw close to him when you suffer, as we remember how he suffered for us.